How's it going, guys? Jim here, Scottish guy in Moscow, and today I'm talking to you about Moscow winter. What is it really like? Well, winter is about to begin. I've already experienced 2 full winters here, so I think I can give you some insight on what it's like, especially if you want to come here. Maybe if you want to live here, it's one of the biggest factors that you'll have to take into account. So let's get into it. What is it like in Moscow in winter? And of course, before we do that, please do hit subscribe. It helps me out, helps YouTube push the channel, and it means I can make more interesting videos about Moscow for you. Check out this sausage dog. Okay, so winter is about to begin. People might say this is autumn right now, but yeah, I would say winter is starting. And if there's one thing that could stop me from wanting to live in Moscow for a long time, all the rest of my life, it would probably be winter. Now, you've probably, if you've never been to Moscow or Russia, Russia seems to be synonymous with the colour grey. Look at the sky. Before I came to Russia, this is I would say what it looks like right now is sort of how Russia and Moscow is portrayed in terms of the weather, in terms of the sky, in terms even of what the apartment buildings look like. Check it out. That one's pretty new actually. So I thought I would give you a Scottish guy's perspective on winter in Moscow. Now, I've never been to Siberia. I've not been all the way up to the top. What's that city called? Murmansk? I've heard that that is one of the coldest places in the whole of Russia. I'm going to give you the perspective of Moscow. I have been here for 2 full winters already, and the 3rd one is about to begin. How long does winter last? Now, I've said that it lasts. Russians haven't agreed with me in the past with how long I say it lasts. I think winter lasts from about now, which is like the end of October, until about the end of March. So that's going to be all of November, all of December, all of January, all of February, all of March. Now, the first year I was here, it was a particularly, well, in relation to the 2 winters that I've experienced, the first one was a lot colder and a lot longer. The second one was much milder. It wasn't anywhere near as cold, and it didn't seem to last as long. The first one that I experienced, the ground was still completely covered in snow until pretty much mid-April to the end of April, which absolutely blew my mind. But because the snow gets piled up so much when it gets ploughed, it ends up in massive piles and takes a long time to melt as well. So even when it became like t-shirt weather, after my first winter, you could walk about in a t-shirt, it was fairly warm, there was still piles of snow because it was taking so long to melt. Get your head around that one. Now, coming from Scotland, where the weather's not very good, where actually the weather looks like this a lot. If I show you again the sky and the trees, how it's kind of cold but not freezing. It's either raining or has been raining. So I'm not coming from a place where the weather was particularly good anyway, so it's not that big a deal for me. Now, I'm going to give you some positives as well. But I do have a friend here, Joseph, over at Expat American channel. Pretty sure he came here from Florida in the United States. So I don't really know how the people who... Oh, and Dan over at Wild Siberia channel, he came here from California. So I don't know how hard it hits the people who come from places with really good weather. It must be quite difficult, to be honest, because there's a few things that you need to take into account. Okay, so that's number 1. I'm going to give you 5 things that I think you need to take into account if you're going to come live here. And first one is the length of the winter, because I lived in Serbia where the weather is actually pretty good. You don't really think about well, I don't think you ever think about Serbia at all, but when I thought about Serbia, I didn't really know anything about Serbia. So I lived in Belgrade in Serbia for 1 year as a teacher, and the weather was really good there, and the winter lasted about 2 months, so you sort of got through it. But oh, let's try and get across this road while it's still green. But when it comes to Russia and it comes to Moscow, which my channel is about, you're going to have to take into account how long the winter is. And I'm telling you, it lasts 5 months. If you're Russian and you're watching this, you can disagree with me if you want. Write it in the comments section how long you think winter lasts. But for sure, I think it lasts 5 months. November, December, January, February, March. Alright guys, number 2 I'm going to talk to you about is the sky and the sun. Because you can go to certain places. I'll give Serbia as an example. Even when it was winter and it was cold, you could still get a beautiful blue sky and the sun. Check it out, check out the sky. The sky is going to look like this until about April, I think. So, if you're somebody who really needs to see a blue sky, or if you're somebody that really needs to see sunshine, then you're not going to see a lot of that. Now don't get me wrong, the summer in Moscow is absolutely amazing. It almost never rains. Not saying that it doesn't rain, but it almost never rains. It's extremely warm to the point where you've got to have, or well, I've got to have air conditioning. I can't live in an apartment without air conditioning because it's too hot. And it's beautiful, and it's set up, the parks, all the restaurants, so they actually build patios just for the summer, then take them back down, a lot of them. So it is an amazing place in the summer. But the sky that you can see behind me, the grey sky with no sunshine, even when it's cold, you're not even going to get those like crisp cold mornings where it's a blue sky. It's going to look like that. So if you want to visit, especially if you want to visit for the first time, this is what I tell people if they're coming for the first time: don't come in winter. Come probably May. Even May can sometimes not be great. June, July, August, September are the best months, as you would imagine. But yeah, you're going to get a grey sky for about 6 months. Alright, number 3 is vitamins. You have to take vitamins in the winter. Now that might be self-explanatory, but my first winter here, I wasn't supplementing any vitamin D, which you obviously get from the sun, or vitamin C either. I got sick a lot, and I'm sure people could end up getting depressed without seeing any sun or having any natural sunlight. So you have to supplement with vitamins. You've really got to look after yourself when you have a winter that lasts as long as this. Now, it's not all negative, because I'm going to get on to a few positives about the winter in Moscow right now. Alright, number 4 is a positive. Well, if you're coming from somewhere like Scotland or a lot of Europe, maybe Northern Europe, where it rains a lot, the great thing is once the temperature drops in winter, it almost doesn't rain at all. So even though it's going to get cold, now how cold have I experienced it? Before I came to Russia, the coldest I experienced, probably like -8 or something, like a one-off in Scotland. The coldest I've experienced here is minus 27 degrees Celsius. And I know by Russian standards that's absolutely nothing. It can get much, much colder than that in Russia, but that is the coldest that I think I've experienced, that I remember checking. Now, what does it feel like? Again, this is for people who have never came here but maybe think they want to. Like your beard, my beard freezes up. It sort of takes your breath away. I felt like I had to breathe through a scarf. But if you're actually wrapped up and you've got warm enough clothing on, I would say it is so much better than being rained on. It's so much better than getting wet. So, are you prepared to deal with minus 20, minus 30 Celsius? So Americans, I know you guys deal with Fahrenheit, don't you? But Celsius. And if you want to go to other places in Russia, it's probably going to be even a lot colder. Now, I'm going to get on to one of the biggest positives next. Now, probably the best thing about a Moscow winter is that the city is completely set up for it. Now, this is going to blow the minds of the people in the UK. The apartment that you live in, the hot water that goes through the radiators is sort of piped through the whole building, as far as I'm aware. And your radiators go on about now, and they're on all the way through till the end of winter. They don't get switched off. You actually need to open your window at times, or I did in my last apartment. You actually need to open your window just to cool your apartment down sometimes, because it gets so warm and toasty inside. British people, you might be thinking, oh my goodness, that's going to cost a fortune. It costs almost nothing by UK standards. Maybe £20 a month, something like that. And your radiator is on constantly, to the point where you have to open up your window, because you can't really switch the radiators off. Maybe some people can in their apartments. It's usually those kind of old school apartments that you used to get in schools when I was a kid, the big cast iron ones, and they come on and they just heat your apartment up so well, and it costs almost nothing. That's probably the one thing in the UK, well, amongst other things that cost a lot, but energy prices in the UK is probably the thing that get people the most. Even people that have worked their whole life and they're on a pension and they're old, so they're now retired, so they're home a lot more, and then they got to switch the radiators on and it costs them an absolute fortune. Or people with children who have a house where you've got like an upstairs, a downstairs, of course, lots of rooms, so you've got to have those radiators on. It's costing people in the UK an absolute fortune. In Russia, it doesn't really. Now, other things, I said it was set up for winter. Other things, like everywhere you go has got a cloakroom, you know, because you're going to be wearing big, heavy winter jackets. Everywhere you go to the gym, there's a little lady taking, maybe not all gyms, but in my gym, you put your coat in at the front, you don't take it all the way in to the lockers. You go to a shopping centre, there's a cloakroom. A lot of times when you're in restaurants, when you're in a really fancy restaurant, there'll be a guy there to do it, but a lot of times there's just a place to hang your jackets, because, and this is another thing that I first noticed coming from the UK, you sort of just hang your jacket at the door, everybody does, and nobody steals them. Nobody steals your jacket. I'm sure somebody's had a jacket stolen in Russia at some point, but the thing that I noticed the most was, I was like, everybody just hangs their jacket here. There's no like attendant that gives you a little ticket. There's no one looking after them. And then you realise, like, oh, yeah, nobody steals them. Which, coming from the UK, you just wouldn't leave a jacket, or a good one, unattended. So, things are really set up for winter. The roads are ploughed constantly. Is that what you call it? Ploughing it? And gritted constantly, so there's never a point where the cars can't drive. This is in Moscow anyway, maybe other places. The radiators, everywhere's warm. Everywhere had cloakrooms where you can take off your heavy jackets. And of course, as I said, it doesn't rain as much. So it's actually, as long as you're dressed properly, then it's okay. Alright guys, there we have it. I just wanted to give you 5 things that, so that was positives and negatives as well. It wasn't all just negatives about how cold and grey it is. It is in fact a lot easier to live here in the winter than it is in a lot of countries. For example, I've got a friend that lives in Spain, because it's so warm most of the year, they don't have radiators built into their apartments. So when it does get to winter, even though the winter isn't as harsh, it's absolutely freezing because they're not set up for it. Or in the UK, where it costs so much for people to put on the radiators that they end up not putting them on to try and save some money. Alright, so if you watch this and you're a fan of Arena, my friend Arena, we're going to do a video on Monday. So that'll be exciting because I know everybody likes her. So we're doing a video on Monday, probably post it on Monday actually. We're going to make it on Monday morning. Alright guys, thanks very much for watching. I'll see you later. Bye bye.